To my fellow Kenshin fans out there, I'm sorry it's been a bit, but I am back, and I'm going to review 2 episodes in a row of the new RUROUNI KENSHIN series, Season 2, Episodes 4 and 5, which basically covers the entire Shinetsu Village portion of the series. I am loving Season 2 so much. I know that I say this in every video, but I think the enhancement from Season 1 to Season 2 of the new Kenshin anime has been just incredible, and I'm loving the journey. I'm loving to get to re-experience one of my favorite manga arcs, story arcs of all time in a new, different way with the little kind of adjustments that they make along the way. There were some differences here that I'll point out from the 90s version, but overall they got the intent, they got the action, they got the emotion, and they got the philosophy of the characters very right. That's not hard to screw up though, since you're just copying the dialogue from the manga. But anyways, all of it was done incredibly well. So let's talk about it. There's a few different points that I want to touch on for this portion of the series. So let's start here. Let's start with the idea of Shinetsu Village. Basically, this is this little area that was forgotten by the Japanese government that they just sort of disregarded once they realized that things were a little bit too difficult here to handle, and nobody wanted to basically lend a helping hand to get them out of there. Saito sent in one of his men undercover that was from the village. They found him out, killed him, and his family as well, except for his younger brother, Eiji. So all of it went to hell. Saito attempted to do at least, some covert information gathering from, just do something, and it all went to hell. Now, I think one of the most interesting things about this segment of the story is how the townspeople react here, because Kenshin wants to cut down the bodies. Hi, Dracula. Kenshin wants to cut down the bodies that have been hung up in the streets, basically as a message to, hey, don't fuck with us, don't fuck with the town, we're doing things our own way here. And they are too scared to let them take the bodies down because of what could happen, the repercussions that could happen that would come from Senkaku. They are all living in fear. They are afraid to stand up to protect the town, but on the other hand, you can't really help but blame them. You can't really blame them because of what they've witnessed and what they've gone through, and the fact that they don't feel like they have the power or they have the strength to do anything about it. The government is not helping them out. They see Saito there dressed as a cop, and they're like, you cops are the ones that haven't done this. And it all goes back to just this fear, right? It's all afraid to stand up for what's right, afraid to stand up for what you believe in because of fear, whether it's the fear of that threat of physical violence against you, or it's because, you go even further, and Saito mentions, like, nobody wants to send the military out for this because we're already stretched too thin and we don't want to appear weak to the outside forces, to the foreign nations and everything at the time. And nobody wants to be the politician that stands up to do something about it because they're afraid of getting assassinated like Akubo was. And so it all comes down to just this fear, right? So that's why they're sending Kenshin out, because this is covert. Like, oh, he was the Batosai. He was the assassin. We'll just keep this under the radar. No one's going to know that Shishio even exists. We won't mention it. It won't be in the papers. It won't be public knowledge because we can't have people feel like we are weak. And this is where it all comes down to Shishio's philosophy, because he feels like because of this weakness that he needs to basically eradicate the current government of Japan and become essentially the leader, because he believes that he is strong. His philosophy is that the strong live, the weak die, the strong feed off of the weak, and these cowards should not be in power. And when you look at Shishio, what I love about it too is when they meet Shishio, Saito immediately assumes that he wants revenge, because he was an assassin that was appointed after Kenshin, and after they used him for all the assassinations that they wanted, they were like, we don't really like this Shishio guy, he knows too much information, so they killed him, or plotted to kill him. They shot him in the head and burned him alive, and yet somehow he survived, and he's still here to this day. And you would assume that, oh, you want vengeance against the people in power that, tried to kill you. And Shishio's like, no, like, I don't care about revenge. What I care about are these weak people in charge that don't deserve to be in power. And this is the philosophy that drives Shishio. And what I find really interesting about his character is that he has a point. Like, maybe not the way he's going about it, right? But he has a point. Like, they used and abused him. They got rid of him when they needed to. They saw his skills as a swordsman, used him as an assassin, and when they were done with him, they left him to rot. And, you know, feeling some type of way about that, not just about how he was treated, but also about the entire methodology behind it, and how they utilize these people and these assassins, and, you know, all of this stuff, that he just feels like these people are weak. They are inefficient. That's why they need us. You know, I deserve to be there. And after everything he's went through, you see that strength is really the only thing that led to his survival, his belief that he was strong, his belief that, you know, he was going to continue to survive. Now, I'm not trying to sound like a Shishio sympathizer or anything. I just think it's really fascinating to see where he's coming from, and to get into his ideals and his philosophy, because from his point of view, it makes perfect sense. But of course, you know, he is the villain of the series, and he takes it way too far, and he completely disregards the people that are living in peace right now. And Kenshin's philosophy is a little bit more of like, you know, these people, just because they're weak, he's not talking about the people in charge, but the people just living their daily lives that Shishio just doesn't give a shit about, right? And Kenshin is like, look, just because they're not strong, just because they can't fight, just because they're not swordsmen, doesn't mean that they deserve to be caught up in this chaos. Doesn't mean that they deserve to be plunged back into war times when they're just trying to reestablish their lives now. So this is the main confliction between them, whereas Shishio just doesn't give a shit about these people, and Kenshin is like, listen, I agree with you, the government sucks, but like, we're kind of on a decent path right now, and we don't want to screw that up. And Kenshin is one of the only people strong-willed enough to stand up against him, and also physically strong enough to do it as well. Unlike the townspeople that are just constantly living in fear, right? So Kenshin feels this added responsibility, not just for making amends for his past and dealing with the repercussions of him being an assassin, but also now it's like, I do have the skills, I do have the strength, you know, I do have the ability to do something, so I am going to do something about it. Basically, Kenshin and Saito go and show up at Shishio's doorstep. Sojiro's there, Yumi as well, Shishio's woman and Shishio's right-hand man. Sorry, I think there's like a fire truck alarm in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. I can hear it very well, but hopefully it doesn't distract too much from the video. So they go there, and I love all of the discussion that happens. Basically everything that I was just saying about Shishio's methodology and why he does what he does. Kenshin standing up against him, and then Sengaku shows up, which you know that Sengaku is going to get, you know, defeated in like 2 seconds, but they do a lot more with him here than they did in the 90s version. With the way that they do the fight scenes in this new Kenshin adaptation, they always add a lot more than the 90s did, at least for season 2. So in the 90s version, Sengaku is basically just like doing the same move over and over and over again. In this version, he's doing a variety of attacks, and he also even attacks Saito at first, like Saito jumps out of the way. Does not happen in the 90s version. And the little like metal spike thing he has on his head, the like drill thing, that's not in the 90s version. As well. That was new to this version. So they do different things with Sengaku. They kind of expand the fights. And that's, I think, probably the best thing that a new anime can do for a series like this, because obviously the story is going to be the same. The dialogue is mostly going to be the same. You could add some new scenes in here or there, but the main thing to utilize when you're doing animation would be, you know, the physicality of it, the fight scenes, and expanding on them. And they do a really good job with that here, where, you know, Kenshin knows like this guy's got nothing, but Shishio is watching very, very closely to get an idea of how Kenshin fights, right? And Kenshin, he's smart. He's been around the block. He knows this. Saito knows this. The only person in the room that doesn't know this is Sengaku, because he's just a big, strong idiot, right? And Kenshin utilizes his speed to make him overexert himself, you know, kind of sprain his leg. And then when Shishio's like, well, if you're not going to at least show me one attack, I'm going to kill Sengaku. So Kenshin ultimately complies, you know. So he did that to save Sengaku's life in many ways. Then you have the confrontation between Kenshin and Sojiro. And if you guys are watching Kenshin for the first time, please do not count out Sojiro. I know he's shown a little bit of his skills so far, but he is one of the most devastatingly powerful characters in this entire series. Sojiro is no joke, and even though he's a kid, it's no surprise as to why he's Shishio's right-hand man. And you don't really get to see too much of it right here, but even though the fight was only one move, the impact is extremely significant, because they do the Bato Jitsu, which is the attack that Kenshin used to defeat Janae. So we've seen it before. We know that it's one of Kenshin's best attacks. It's his fastest attack. But the reason that Kenshin chose to use that attack was because he can't get a read on Sojiro's emotions. And that's one of the most pivotal things that they talk about in this show when it comes to swordsmanship and fighting, is that Kenshin is able to predict his enemy's movements. He's able to kind of read their body language and their emotions and their mannerisms. With Sojiro, he's kind of just a blank slate. He's just kind of like, okay, let's fight. And there's just nothing there. There's not really enthusiasm either. There's not anger. There's not resentment. He's just like nothing, you know? And we'll get more into that as the series goes on, but it makes him incredibly hard to predict. Not only that, but his speed as well. We'll get into that as the series goes on. You see a little bit here when he's like running away from the soldiers, which is really funny, but he's very fast as well. So Kenshin's like, I don't know what to do with this dude, so I'm just going to attack with my fastest attack. He does so. Sojiro matches his speed, and Kenshin's sword is broken. And this is important symbolism of Kenshin's ideology, the way that he fights, the way that he views things right now, his vow not to kill, because the reverse blade sword is that, you know, symbolic item of his new way of life, of his atonement, of I'm not going to kill anymore. I'm still going to fight for what's right and defend people that need it. But the reverse blade sword is to, you know, ensure that I don't kill anybody. And now it's broken. And he's going up against characters now that are on his level, if not maybe above. You got Sojiro, you got Shishio, and they talk about assembling the 10 swords here too. So it's like, what is Kenshin going to choose to do in the future? You know, and does this broken reverse blade sword kind of symbolize that this reverse blade sword has no purpose in this upcoming battle? You know, it's a really interesting little moment there. And after the fight, there's also this moment, and this might sound really, really corny, and I'm sorry if it does, but I always talked about how important Kenshin was to me as a series growing up, and how it means so much to me. And this is why, like, despite the controversy with the author, I still love the series and I still love the story. And it's moments like this, because Eiji goes to kill Sengoku, because Sengoku is responsible for, you know, putting, you know, everybody in town in a state of fear, killing his parents, killing his brother. And Saito stops him, number one, you know, and there's, you know, Saito, he knows that he doesn't want the kid to go down this path too, but he says, it's like, actually, no, we need to arrest him and interrogate him, so get out of here. But we know deep down Saito feels the same way, right? Maybe. And then Kenshin comes over to Eiji, and he says this profound line that has always stuck with me throughout my entire life, where he says, you know, the dead, basically I'm paraphrasing, but he says the dead don't wish this pain and suffering on their loved ones that are still alive. The dead only want their loved ones to be happy and to move on and have a good life. And if you are going to do that, do not live your life as a fearful, scared person like the villagers. And also, if you become strong, don't use your life to, you know, suppress and subjugate others because you're stronger, therefore you deserve more. Instead, become a strong person that is capable of helping and defending weak people, or helping them rise up to be strong as well. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing here, but like, that sentiment has always stuck with me my entire life. And like, I know it's so stupid. I'm getting like a little bit emotional about it. Like, this is what I remembered. Like, it's so fucking stupid. I'm sorry. But like, this is what I remembered when like my dad passed away. Like, I literally thought about this moment of Kenshin talking to Eiji, and it helped me. Right. And so, you know, these are reasons why I say, you know, good things can still come out of this. Like, understanding that the author is a piece of shit, you know, is one thing, but that doesn't mean that good things still can't come out of the story. And for me, like, this is one of those moments, you know, and it always stuck with me. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be something I think about. But ending on a little bit of humor. So at the end of this little Shinetsu Village segment, you find out that Saito actually has a wife, which I love the little comedic, like, this is historically accurate because Saito was actually a real historical figure. So really funny. You never get to see her. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the new anime will change that. Maybe the new anime will show her. But yeah, apparently Saito has a wife, and he's like, yeah, we're just going to have Eiji stay with Tokio for a little while. They're like, who the fuck is Tokio? He's like, oh, it's my wife. And they're just like, you, of all people, are married. Yes, he was. So Saito is going to take his leave for a little while. It's actually, unfortunately, going to be a little while since we see him, unless the anime adds some new stuff. But in the meantime, I'm really excited for where the story goes from here. Not to spoil anything, but we're going to cut to another character in the next episode, and it's great. And then at some point, we will finally get to Kyoto. But anyways, I think that season 2 is doing a great job so far, and I really, really, really think you know, they did a fantastic job like readapting this and doing things a little bit differently, but staying true to the core themes of the story. And I'm just excited for the next episode. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about Rurouni Kenshin season 2. I think it's episode 4 and 5 that came out. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And like I said, you know, I really appreciate this because I wasn't going to make episode reviews, but you guys have been really nice and you know, kind in the comments, and people have been sending in super chats like, hey, review more episodes. And I'm like, well, I can't not do it now, man. I got to give the people what they want. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next week.